Hey everyone, welcome back to Shattering Ceilings. It's Lauren.
And Megan. And today we have a lovely little reflection episode for you. So this is going to be all about like ways that you can reflect on the last 12 months and kind of take in the fullness of what 2022 brought into your life.
Yeah, I mean, here we are a few days before we ring in 2023. And I
Crazy.
know it is crazy. Where did time
Oh
go?
God, I don't
I mean,
know. My birthday's tomorrow. I'm gonna be 33.
oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh,
Ringing in the new year.
I like it. That's awesome. So, yeah, like I feel like in the years past, right? We like rush to the end of the year because it is a busy season, right? Like the past, I mean,
Yeah, you
listen,
blink and November's over.
I know, and
Christmas is
then
2 weeks
December.
away.
Right, here
Yeah.
we are. And it's like, okay, hurry, 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 get everything done for the year, holidays, all the things. And then it's like, hey, 2023 is about to be here. What are your intention? What's your resolution? What's your word? What are you going to do this year? And it's like,
Yeah.
did anyone actually pause to think about how the first 12 months or the last 12 months, I should say, went?
Yeah. I feel like this comes up a lot. Like we did some talk about reflection in the fall because that's like
Mhm.
the season, right, of letting go.
Mhm.
And how important it is to like
Mhm.
reflect on what you've done. But we are in such a society where it's like, okay, achieve this, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next,
Mhm.
that it's like not built into our culture to
Yeah.
stop and actually like think about what you've accomplished, think about what's changed, maybe think about the, not just the good stuff but also like the hard stuff that you went through in the year and
Yeah.
how you came out on the other side of it.
Yeah. I'm
um
guilty of this. I mean, I've been guilty. It's something I'm working on for sure, is like on to the next, on to the next. Um, and I think like really you can't really be on to the next and do it well unless you have reflected upon what you just went through or what you not just went through, but went through this past year. And like you said, what worked for you, what didn't work for you? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Because
yeah,
otherwise, are you going to do the same thing this next year
right, what are the
coming?
patterns? So I think there's an important distinction to make in what Lauren just said. So she said well, and by well we don't mean like without outward success, right? You can
Mhm.
continue, you can be on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, and see exponential growth in your career or whatever. But like, what other areas of your life are taking a hit because of it? So, well is
Right.
like overall your relationships, your physical symptoms, like your mental health, all of the
Mhm.
things. That's where the importance of it, because you have to recognize, like, you to feel good about what you've done, to
Mhm.
understand like the gravity of what you've gone through. You have to take the time to reflect on it. And that really helps you build from a different place. It's like
Mhm.
moving from that filled cup instead of the empty cup. You got to fill your own fucking cup, you know?
Yes. Yes, we hear that a lot. However, again, it's like we hear things and it's almost sometimes too like you should be doing certain things, but it's like, "Oh, I'll get to that when I have X amount of time or X amount of money." And
Right.
it's like,
Where I hit
"Are
this
you
goal.
ever?" Yeah. Like, "Are you ever
Yeah.
though?" Because it's just again, you're going to be on to
No.
the next thing.
Yeah.
So so yeah, so I think, my hope is that we all, including myself and Meg too, like we take this time in between now and the new year. And here's the other thing too, guys. Like, yes, the new year starts technically on January 1st. That does not
Mhm.
mean you have to know exactly your plan, your strategy, your goals for the new year on that day. In fact, I was
Oh,
telling
heck
Meg
no.
this the other day, right? Like, I am one who I will write down my goals for every month, right? And I typically do it either very late the last day of the month or I do it first thing, on the first of the month, right? First thing in the morning. I get up
Mhm.
at 5:30. And I didn't do that this year. I didn't do it this year. I don't even know what I did on the first, but I think I did a lot of like, I don't know, self-care maybe. Like, and I didn't write anything down. I mean, it was day 2, so it wasn't like super late or anything, but it felt good to kind of like just soak in what happened in November
Mm.
and not write everything down or like know what I want for again December. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not just like the flip of a switch. And I think it's important, like, we're still in winter time. Just because we're starting a new year, we're not actually starting a new season. We're on like the decline of winter, right? But there's still a couple more months before we kick into that spring energy. And winter's all about like the planning and the preparation. So it's okay not to know where you're going. Aaron and I actually have a joke in our house that like, and this, we've been together for 12 years, you guys. We started dating in March of 2012 or 11, I don't know. It's been a long time. But we have a running joke that like every March shit hits the fan. Not in a bad way, but just like we're
Mhm.
like, okay, it's March 1st, what's coming? And it literally happens. I mean, this year it was us making the decision to move to Louisiana and Aaron got a
Gosh,
job the
was that
first week of
March?
March, but like it was, yeah, I was looking
Wow.
back, I'm like, and every year this happens in our life, which
Uh-huh.
makes sense. It's the beginning of spring. You
Yeah.
know, it's that like when that gust of wind comes and hits you, like
Mhm.
shit starts moving.
Mhm.
So it's okay to give yourself some time and really play with what you want to in
Yeah.
the coming.
And I know this is kind of like skipping ahead, but I do want to say this too, because like it's important to do the work. So again, like Meg saying, it may not be until March that you start to see things moving. And
Yeah.
that I just want to say, like, don't give up on the work, the inside work, that you're doing because you're not seeing those outside results. Right.
Oh, totally.
I
Yeah.
think like so many of us do that, right? I mean, we can take the example of going to the gym or being on a diet, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm eating so well, but like it's been 2 weeks and I don't really see anything. It's been 4 weeks, I don't really see anything, but keep freaking going, right? Like, I
Right.
think, again, that's something to remember as we go into, again, creating intentions later and even just reflecting. Like, things take time, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Meg,
Absolutely.
you were just saying, let's talk about that a little bit. You were reflecting upon your year,
Mhm.
right? And go ahead, tell me what you were just saying a little bit ago.
So it's been a really big year for us. You
Mhm.
know, we made a huge move. I had to completely restructure how my business ran and like trust. This has been such a year of discomfort for me, and that's like the biggest point of reflection that I've had is that like I've said for like I'm always on this track of growth, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
I want to grow, personal growth, business growth, all this stuff, and like
Mhm.
it feels almost like a year of me going backwards. I came home to a place I never thought I was going to live. My business took a huge hit financially when I moved. Like all of these things, I thought I was going to be practicing acupuncture right now. That took a hit, but like all of that discomfort has like given so much like made way for so much expansion. I have learned to
Mm.
trust. I've learned to let go of control. I've learned to be more flexible, right? I've learned how to prioritize my time differently. And all of those things, all of that growth, that internal growth is necessary for me to actually get to where I want to go.
Mhm.
So maybe as you're reflecting, you don't feel like, oh, okay, well, oh, and I talked to my accountant the other day. Actually, I was like, "Oh man, the business fucking sucked this year." She's like, "Oh, you had 32% growth." I was so busy.
Wow!
I
That's
know, like, pat
awesome,
myself on the
Meg.
back.
Hell yeah.
I had no idea because I was
Right.
so caught up in my own shit, right? And, like,
Mm.
seeing all the hard
Right.
months that we had that I forgot about that first 6 months where I was still
Yeah.
working before we restructured, before we hired new people.
Right.
Um, so when you are reflecting, it doesn't necessarily have to be this big outward growth. Like, it can be things that feel little and insignificant, but, like,
Yeah.
really take the time to see where that shows up in your life. Right?
Mhm.
And how you can do more of those things. Like the more I let go, the more I trust in the universe, trust in other people, let go of control is when that growth and expansion really started happening. And
Mhm.
sometimes you have to go back before you can go forward.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you say, the little things, because like I look back on this year for myself and I you're right, I don't really see huge things that were mind-blowing experiences where I was like, "Oh yeah, that was definitely growth," or "That was definitely, something," whatever.
Mhm.
For me, like 2021, I know I opened a can of worms growth-wise. And then 2022 was more of the same. However, what I was saying to Meg too was like, I feel like I was able to move through it feeling like less volatile. Like 2021 was like change
Mm.
and growth, and it was like you're feeling all the things moving through that. Whereas 2022, there was a lot of change and growth, but it was more like I could keep my head more level, keep my heart more level, right? And
Right.
I actually feel like this year was a year of a lot of healing for me. Like things that would have really triggered me before or would have thrown me for a while, like didn't throw me for as long. And I
Yeah,
do
which is
think
huge.
Right. But on outside world, right? Like, like I was saying, like results wise, outcome wise, like it doesn't seem like it was much, but I know internally it was huge for me. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think
Like,
that,
that's such a big thing. Like,
yeah.
how you feel on the inside while you're doing things is so
Hmm.
underrated.
I
But,
mean,
like, could you
yes.
imagine, like, how nice is it to go through something and hit a bump and be like, "Okay, we'll get through this," as
Hmm.
opposed to, like, getting into this windstorm of, like,
Hmm.
"Oh my god, my business is gonna close. Oh my god, my
Right.
relation," like, just, like,
Yeah. Well,
chaos, total chaos, like,
we had some moments like, and when I say moments, I mean
sure.
like maybe a day, if not even, where I'd call Meg and be like, oh my God.
We're still
But
human, we still have
right.
emotional weights.
We do. We do. We are emotional beings. So yes, we definitely have the waves. But I do credit that too, guys. Like having Meg, having someone that I can call and like
Mm,
walk through this life with, having again the personal growth, like it seems like it's so trivial journaling or writing your gratitude every day or reading a
right.
little bit or listening to podcasts, every day. But you know what? Like it really has given me all the tools that I need. And it seems like they come all at the right time, like my word right now is trust. Actually, that will be my year or my word for 2023. I only know that though because I've been doing a lot of reflecting the past however many,
Yeah,
always, but like really around that and going forward. Um so yeah, like I'm looking forward to doing that more in 2023. But first, yeah, you have to like reflect upon again all the things. What did
yeah.
it feel like? And like Meg was saying, and let's talk about that too a little bit. Like masculine is like your strategy, right?
Mhm.
And the outcome and how we're going to get to do things. But then that feminine, right, energy is how do we feel when we're doing that? Like success to me is not having all this money and accolades and all the things if I feel like shit on the inside and I'm constantly feeling stressed and overwhelmed and my stomach's in knots and I have headaches. Like that's not
Right,
really
it's like sitting
success.
back, trusting, opening yourself up to receive. Because guys,
Mhm.
like, I mean, this isn't necessarily about reflection, but this is a huge thing that I know I've learned this year. Um, if you are like Laura loves to say, bullying your way through everything,
Mhm.
the ability to actually receive the opportunities that come at you
Mhm.
goes down so much. Like, sometimes you have to just, like, let go. Like, it's like that deep breath
Yes.
in, like that, that
Mhm.
release, letting things wash over you instead of being like, "Okay, if I'm not doing this by this timeline and it doesn't look like this, like, I need to lose 10 pounds in the next 30 days and my pants need to fit
Mhm.
like this." Like, that
Mhm.
doesn't actually leave space for any possibility. You've
Yeah.
put yourself into a box, and everybody talk, "I don't wanna be in a box, I don't wanna be in a box," but we put ourselves in boxes all the fucking time.
We sure do.
Like, feminine is not a box, it is circular, it is flow, and that takes, like, an
Mm.
internal shift,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it's like recognizing where you're kind of like stopping that flow state. So
Yeah.
again, like so when you start to feel those things, like when are you feeling more drained? When are you feeling frustrated? When are you feeling like, again, like you're stressed or overwhelmed? Physical symptoms too, like, not just fatigue, but maybe it's like aches and pains and
Mhm.
headaches, like I was saying before,
Finding
right?
yourself getting sick, like, physically
Yeah,
sick,
physically sick. And then like, what are you doing in that moment that you're feeling those kinds of things? Are
Yeah.
you stretching yourself too thin? Like I am someone who is very guilty of sorry, that's my daughter. That's my daughter in the background. But like where are you like for me, I say yes to a lot of things,
Mhm.
and then I'll be in that moment and I am finding myself again either stressed or drained about it. And like that's my that's my warning, or that's my what's the word I'm looking like, I guess reflection point, whatever you want to say, that hey, do less.
Yeah.
You need to say no more, because you're wearing yourself out, you
Yeah,
know?
and that kinda, like, spreads out a little deeper, right? Like, okay, you have that warning sign, like, "Ooh, I said I wanted to clear my calendar a little bit, and next week I am booked, right? Past booked. So that's a perfect opportunity to say, like, okay, how can we do this differently? What do I need to actually work on inside so that I don't feel so pressured or compelled or whatever to say yes to so many things.
Yeah.
And that's just one example, but like in the reflection, let it go. The
Mhm.
deeper you allow yourself to go, the more layers you peel back, the more you're going to
Mhm.
get out of the reflection. So don't let it
Absolutely.
just be like, oh, I booked my calendar too much, can't do that next year. Okay, well, what led you to booking your calendar too much? How
Yes.
are you feeling in those moments? What physical symptoms did you have on those weeks that you did book your calendar so much? But
Mhm.
oppositely, because we don't want to just focus, I feel like we are focusing a little bit on the negative right now, but
Mhm.
oppositely of that, what were those moments that were incredibly triumphant? How
Mhm.
were you feeling in those moments? What did you do differently in those moments, right? What
Mhm.
played out after those moments? What opened up in those moments?
Mhm.
And like take in the full picture of it. We want to be standing at the top of the mountain, taking in that full perspective, seeing
Right.
all the beauty, all the fog, all the everything,
Mhm.
and
Absolutely.
let that guide you into the next year.
I love that. And I think like you were saying too, like peeling back the layers, like there's always things behind our decisions, right, that are influence us. And I think that's the harder part to really like recognize is like, okay, yes, like whether you feel good or you don't, like again, what led you to that point? And I think that's really
Mhm.
where you need to spend the time. Like this kind of stuff does take time. It's not something that you should just kind of like, all right, I'm going to spend 20 minutes reflecting and then we're good to go. I'm ready to move on into the
Right.
new
I've done that.
year.
Check it off my to-do list,
Right, because maybe
you
that's
know?
something you wanna look at if you're one of those check the box kind of people, right? We
Yeah,
all love to
can
check a
you
box,
open
I
up?
get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you
Can you
open
open
up?
up? Like,
Mhm,
so when you're doing this, this is like a call to action right now. Whether it's in the morning or in the evening or in the middle of the day, whenever you have the time to just say, you know what? I'm going to set aside an hour or two. Just leave it
mhm,
open ended for myself to do this exercise with the freedom without that pressure of that timeline and knowing, oh, I've got 15 minutes here in the middle of my schedule. Don't pick a busy time in your day.
mhm.
Have a glass of wine, take a nice bubble bath, do a few minutes of meditation, like whatever it is for you that helps you get into a really
Oh, I
nice
love
like
that.
state of like relaxation and openness. Like get yourself into a place where you can
Mhm.
do this open-minded and not bogged
Yeah.
down by your day.
Right, because you don't again, it's another thing that you don't wanna force, or else it's really not going to work out probably in the best way. And I think too, it's
Yeah.
like journaling and just kinda like after you do those things 'cause that sounds fabulous. I would love to go do that right now, Meg. Draw a bath, glass of wine, but music
Oh,
also. I'm gonna include that in there.
yes.
Maybe some candles lit too.
Yeah,
But
whatever it is for you, that may sound
yeah.
horrific if you're like, "I hate sitting in a warm bath." Okay, fine, skip the bath. What
Go for
helps
a
you? Maybe you go
walk,
for a run
whatever.
or right,
Mhm.
exactly.
Be with your
Whatever it is for
animals.
you. Yeah,
Outside, whatever. But then use that time. It doesn't have to look like complete sentences or whatever, but just like dump out whatever on your brain.
yeah,
Like just dump it
absolutely.
out and like see what comes up for you because I guarantee like things will come up. Words, phrases, feelings, and just write it. It doesn't have to make sense right now, right?
Yeah,
And then
right,
maybe,
there's no structure to it, just let it all flow.
yeah.
Get into
And
that feminine energy, let it flow.
let it flow, exactly. And then either then or even later, and honestly, probably not even just one time, like, these are things that you can build upon because they will, right, continue to build on themselves, those ideas and those
Totally.
feelings, and probably
Yeah,
even clarity around it, because once you have it on paper and you can see it, it's almost like you identify it, and then you
mhm.
can really kinda hone in on what it is that you're thinking or feeling. Right.
Totally. I wanna throw this out there. So I was listening to our girl Danielle, who we all know and love at this point. It's my
Mhm.
Lauren's favorite person to talk about on this podcast.
It's true.
This should be
Mhm.
like a paid sponsorship at this point. Um,
Danielle, if you're
but
listening, no.
yes, him. But she said something the other day that I thought was like, ugh, just so useful. She said, if you talk to highly successful people in your life, the only difference between you and them is that they have bigger problems. Right,
Mm,
so when you're sitting
that's a
here,
good
like,
one.
looking at all this stuff and, like, reflecting on your year, when you're taking that second round or whatever, if you have the time to sit and do this all in one sitting, fine, but look back at the things that you called problems.
Mm,
Were they actually problems? Or were they just small disturbances in your day that you allowed to become problems?
mm,
And in that forward moving growth, like, how can we refocus on bigger problems? Like, instead of, oh, I was 10 minutes late for work this day or picking up my kids, like, fuck that. It's not a big deal. Everybody lived through it, right? Like,
Mhm.
bigger problem. How am I going to expand my business? How am I going to, get closer with my partner? Like, problem, opportunity, whatever you choose the word, but like,
Right.
make it bigger. The example she used is like, she's not worried about how she's going to pay for, um, her rent that month, right? It is, how much do I wanna put down on the deposit on my custom home? And that is a very privileged, problem, quote,
Mm.
to have, but
Mhm.
that's just one example. It's not this tiny little thing, it's something much bigger. Okay, this is a problem, right? Because it's gonna change the trajectory of her life.
Mhm.
That changes her living system or some jeez, living situation, right? Like,
Mhm.
um it changes the way her work's gonna look. She's somebody that
Mhm.
works out of her home, right? So being in a home as opposed to an apartment, like, that's huge. That changes everything for her.
Mhm.
So what are bigger things that you can look at in your life that you put your focus on and your attention on, and not those tiny little things, those little road bumps that we hit in our days and our weeks, whatever, because they don't go
Yeah.
away. We
No,
just
they
get to
don't.
control how we handle them and how we think of them, our perspective around them,
Right.
right?
And I think that's such a good point, Meg, because it's like, yeah, going into the new year, it would be amazing, right, to not focus so much on those little things because, again, like you said, what we
Mhm,
focus on grows. So if we're focusing on those little disturbances that we have, and again, I understand like they can sometimes those little things, depending on what else is going on in your life, they can throw you for a loop. And I still think that when you look at, again, going back to like the people that are not just successful, again, we're not talking financially, guys. We're talking about people that live well, like
right,
on
people
their
that feel
terms.
fulfilled in their
Mhm.
life.
A lot of them are focusing more on gratitude and those bigger things, right, that they want to work on
Mhm.
in life than those little, again, let's just call them disturbances or whatever you want to call them. Um, and gratitude it's a thing that we talk about a lot because it really does make a difference. So even when you're
Mhm.
reflecting on this past year, and again, we're listing not just the things that we want to change, but the things that we want more of in our life,
Mhm.
having gratitude for it all though, I think is really important because without having all of the things that we've experienced this year, okay, we wouldn't be where we are now. And listen, I know that where you are now, it may not be where you want to be. And maybe you did have a shitty year. Maybe some shitty things did happen, right? But I think there has to be too that vision and hope for that the next year coming is going to look different and feel different. But before you can have that, right, you have to have gratitude for what was, you know,
Mhm.
before you can have
Absolutely.
gratitude for what's coming.
And just moving from a place of gratitude, like we talk about changing perspective, right? Reframing all those things, like moving
Mhm.
from that place of gratitude is a big part in how you do change your perspective.
Mhm.
Rather than looking at something as a nuisance or a problem, like looking at it as an opportunity that might seem really small, but like, okay, I was late to pick up my kids for school today, right? What opportunity does that provide me? Maybe it means I change my schedule around a little bit so that I'm not trying to run out of work or the house or whatever at the last minute. Like, what can I do differently? And
Mhm.
that little change is going to create more ease in your day. So,
Mhm.
something small that maybe seemed frustrating or big at that moment can actually lead to a way like reprioritizing your time. That's a new skill that you're learning that can
Mhm.
then domino effect in other areas of your life. So really like moving, thank goodness I was late to pick up my kids that day because it required me to stop and think about how I was moving through my day. And that
Mm.
created change in so many different ways, right? Like small things can create huge outcomes.
Mhm.
So don't overlook those small things. Don't let them send you into a tailspin. We don't get control over shit in
Mm.
this life except for how we deal with it.
Yes, how we show up for it.
Yes, next year is gonna
Mhm.
change, right? Because change is inevitable. Change
Mhm.
is one of the few guarantees we have in life, except for death. Like,
Yeah,
change is going to happen.
absolutely.
So how do we
Absolutely.
navigate it?
I love that. I love that so much. And I think that brings me to like, again, going back to vision, which is another big word that's been on my brain lately is vision. Me and Meg we're starting that vision challenge, for the
Yes.
first and beyond, right? And we would love for you all to join us in that because again, I think that after the reflection part comes, and we do that and we start to see what we want for the new year, right? We have to have that vision before we can kind of have the strategy part, right? And maybe we'll
Yeah,
talk
you don't
about
have
that
to know
too.
how.
Mm-mm.
We just
You
wanna
just
know we need to know what it's gonna look like, right? At least for
right.
now, because that can change too.
And
Your
vision
vision in
changes.
January
Yeah.
all
Mhm.
the time,
All the
all the time.
time. And that's okay. Like we have to be okay with
Mhm,
that too. Again, like going back to change, things will change. You should change, right? Like we are human beings. Things are going to change our life and that's okay. And our vision
mhm.
for ourselves, our family, our business, like all of that can change and it will change. And I think that again, before you can go into intentions and goal setting for 2023 and all the things, you first have to have that vision because you have to know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So that's why we really want to start talking openly about that vision and with each other so that number one, we can put it out there because again, what you're putting out
Mhm.
there, you're attracting it back. But two, like getting comfortable like sharing that with people. Because I think sometimes we keep our ideas and our vision to ourselves because we're afraid that like people are going to look at us like, oh, they're crazy for thinking that, or does she really think she can do that, or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. And I really want to believe that we can have that space or community where we really do believe that we can all attain the things that we desire in our lives and cheer each other on as we do that.
Heck yeah. This is for somebody like, I mean, I'm totally guilty of that. Let's just say that. Like, so guilty of not sharing my vision because I'm scared of what other people think or if I can't like live up to it, right? Or
Mhm.
if I want to change lanes, like totally done that in my life. This Voxer group will be a space where like everybody's doing that together, everybody's supporting each other, and like it's a great place to start to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, right? Like, get
Mhm.
practice at what it feels like to share your vision, to feel
Yeah.
that vulnerability of speaking something out loud that feels so huge,
Mhm.
right? Like something that you don't know the how or the why around it yet.
And I think it'll inspire each other, right? Like,
Heck yeah.
I don't know who's all going to be in this Vox group. I know some people that are like, sign me up. Where do we start? Which we will get that info out there. We'll
Yeah,
be
we're
working
not
on.
even there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We have the vision. We don't know the how yet.
Yeah.
See, this is how this works. But we're gonna get it to you. And but I think it'll be so cool when we get to hear what other people envision for themselves in their life. And it
Mhm.
gives us permission, right, to also do the same for ourselves. And maybe I'll add a
Totally.
little bit of Meg's visions or, like I know Cordy is going to be in our group. I know she's like, where do I sign up for it? She already messaged me. But like, I think it'll be so cool to hear. And again, it'll spark so much joy amongst each other too. And when you can have those great like feelings like vibing together, like again, we know that that really helps call into what it is that we desire. So,
Totally. When you're in a group, like a container like that,
mhm,
it amplifies the energy because everybody is there like vibing on the same frequency, if you will. We are all there
mhm,
building a vision, growing
mhm.
our futures,
Yeah.
right? So come feel that, like let that wash over you, be a part of it. It's such a fun way to start a new year.
I agree. And who knows what will happen in there? Like again, hearing each other's vision, we might be like, "Hey, I can help you with that." Right? Because
Heck
again,
yeah.
and I'm hoping we'll talk more about this at some point too, but it comes down to not so much like how I'm going to get there or how will I make this happen, but who. Like who can help me or who can I help
Hmm.
in whatever it is that you or someone else is
Right.
trying to
Creating that
accomplish.
village.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
So with that, guys,
mhm.
we're going to cut this one. So go reflect, set aside some
Yes.
time, before the end of the year. It doesn't have to be today, but
No.
to really like sit down with yourself
Mhm.
and look back at all you've accomplished, the good, bad, the ugly.
And maybe me and Meg too, like we'll probably, I'm sure, post some things in our stories of ways that we're reflecting and doing things, to well with this whole process. And maybe
Mhm.
we'll make some suggestions in our stories. So definitely check those out. And I hope that you really, again, enjoy this process, soak in the new year. I hope it's a
Yeah.
prosperous one for us all. And we'll see you in 2023.
On the other side. Gosh, that's so crazy
Yeah,
to say.
I know. See you next year.
Bye.